Look at the New England Patriots and what they have in play. And you look at Josh Gordon and the way that he performed. And you look at Julian Edelman and the way he's still capable of performing. And you look at Tom Brady, the surgeon that he is. He's just phenomenal. Okay? And Bill Belichick coaching this team. We all know what time it is. All you need to know is that the only team that seems to have any hope in the AFC of knocking them off, you could say Baltimore if Lamar Jackson continues to look this way, but how many people think he's going to continue to look that way? The Miami Dolphins is no litmus test. Some would argue they're not even an NFL team right now. You know, Brian Flores is definitely partaking a reclamation project. Miami Dolphins stink. And what an embarrassment that they suffered at the hands of the Baltimore Ravens yesterday. That was never a game. But Lamar Jackson to Hollywood Brown, this brother's something special. We get all of that. But outside of the Baltimore Ravens, who's the one team that you think could challenge New England? You know who that is? It's Kansas City. That's because Patrick Mahomes, who threw for 378 yards yesterday against Jacksonville, can put up points in bunches. Answers an MVP caliber season, or an MVP season, literally, without the services of Kareem Hunt, with Tyreek Hill going down with his own broken collarbone. He utilizes Kelsey. He utilizes Sammy Watkins, LaShawn McCoy, Damian Williams, the coaching of Andy Reid, the play calling of Andy Reid. They could have dropped 50 on Jacksonville if they really, really wanted to. And that's really the only team that you see giving New England a problem until you look at Kansas City on the defensive side of the ball and you remember how atrocious they are as a defensive team, and then you realize they got no shot against New England. They got no shot. And so to me, when you look at Antonio Brown ending up going to New England, one of the reasons it should disgust you is because it's grotesquely unfair. Granted, injuries happen every day. Granted, if you can find a fearsome foursome that can get to the quarterback that is Tom Brady, the way the Giants did, not just in 07, but in 11 as well, then that's a different ballgame. But the reality of the situation is nobody's expecting that to happen. The New England Patriots, assuming Josh Gordon can stay on the field and not check himself into a clinic or get himself suspended because of his repeated addiction or his drug use with alcohol and drugs, if he's able to stay on the field, what you going to do with New England? Tell me what you're going to do with New England. I challenge somebody to tell me, what can you do with New England? Because I don't see it. I really, really don't. You got Burkhead running the football. You got James White running the football. You got Sony Michel running the football. You got Tom Brady throwing the football. You got Edelman and White and Burkhead each catching passes out of the backfield, at least 5. You got Josh Gordon there. Dorsett scored, caught a 58-yard touchdown, and he had 2 touchdowns. And by the way, they ain't even had Antonio Brown yet. I mean, it's not fair. We've almost never said this about an NFL team, but it's actually unfair to see what New England has at their disposal. All of us are into our football. Football's religion in this nation. You got pastors scheduling their sermons around NFL Sunday. We all know what time it is, and I'm here to tell you something right now. As you look at it, there's no denying that when you really, really look at this for what it is, the New England Patriots appear to be so loaded, it's almost a waste of time to watch them. It's almost a waste of time. Who in God's name is possibly going to stop this crew? Who's going to do it? I don't know anybody that's going to do it. I can't see anybody that's going to do it. I really, really can't. I can't imagine that this is going to be the case. I really, really can't. I was hoping Pittsburgh would be somewhat competitive. I should have known better. I'm looking at the Baltimore Ravens, and John Harbaugh could coach his tail off, but am I really going to bet on Lamar Jackson against Bill Belichick? Lamar Jackson couldn't handle Anthony Lynn. Last time we saw him against a real NFL team, because I contend the Dolphins are not one yet, We saw Lamar Jackson go 3 full quarters and 2 minutes, completing just 3 passes for 25 yards in a playoff game against the Chargers. I'm sorry. I'm not going to get overly excited at what I saw from him yesterday against the Miami Dolphins. When I see how putrid and pathetic the Dolphins are, I'm not going to do it. So if I'm New England, I'm already in the AFC East. Buffalo struggled to beat the Jets. They shouldn't have, but the Jets didn't have a kicker, so they did. And then the other team in the division is Miami. You talk about the New England Patriots. I mean, damn, that's about 6 bye weeks. Who's going to beat them in the division? That's 6 wins right there. And then in the AFC, Baltimore, Kansas City. Kansas City don't have a defense. Baltimore's got a second-year quarterback. It's almost not fair. Come Super Bowl time, how you going to stop these brothers? I don't know how you're going to pull it off. I really, really don't. And so that's the kind of thing that sort of has you lost. That's the kind of thing that sort of has you a little bit depressed. You just look at it and you just say to yourself, my goodness, I don't even know what to do. So on one hand, it's the absence of competitiveness in a National Football League that's enough to grate one's nerves. But nothing should compare to the whole debacle and fiasco that has been Antonio Brown. You know, for those that haven't been paying attention, in the last week alone, Antonio Brown had lost a grievance to the National Football League over his helmet issue. Antonio Brown had skipped numerous practices. Antonio Brown ultimately was fined by the Oakland Raiders. Mike Mayock, the general manager, issued the letter. Antonio Brown saw it and then posted it on social media. Turned around, went to practice, and threatened to punch the man in the face. After doing that, he turned around and did some tearful mea culpa, apologizing to the Oakland Raiders. Was supposed to meet up with John Gruden, never showed. Stood him up. And then after that, he turns around because Drew Rosenhaus gets John Gruden on the phone on three-way with Antonio Brown. John Gruden talks to Antonio Brown. He asks him, do you want to be a Raider or not, man? Do you want to be here or not? I traded for you. We want you here. Do you want to be here or not? Antonio Brown says, yeah, I wanted to be a Raider from day one. He said, just play football. Well, I'm more than a football player. I'm a man, you know what I'm saying? I'm more than a football player. Said, look, play football, man. That's what you're getting paid to do. How do I know all of this? Because immediately following that conversation, Antonio Brown violated California state laws by taping the conversation without the consent of both parties. He taped the conversation and then posted it on YouTube. At which time John Gruden said, this brother's got to go. I've had enough. The Raiders give Antonio Brown what he wants because he had posted on Instagram, Raiders release me, because they took away the guarantees to insulate and secure themselves in the event that he was going to act up again. They weren't going to guarantee his money. Antonio Brown demanded his release. The Raiders obliged. And this dude runs around like a clown in his backyard. I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. Right? Acting like it was a surprise. What's the camera doing there? It was clearly orchestrated. You knew exactly what to do. You trying to tell me that's how you found out on social media that your agent didn't tell you you were free? That your agent didn't tell you that the Raiders were releasing you from your contractual obligations? Are you trying to act like you didn't know that? That was the first time you knew it? And you got the person out there filming you right there. Why are they filming you for? You knew exactly what the hell you were doing, but trying to feign it like you're trying to act like this was really what happened. Okay? So you did all of that. And then you got traded. Not traded. You got released and picked up by the Oakland Raiders. I'm sorry, by the New England Patriots. New England Patriots guarantee you $10 million, pay you $9 million, and got $5 million in incentives that you could ultimately acquire. It's a 1-year deal. There's an option for a second year that they announced this morning at $20 million, but the option belongs to the team. Now, there are some of you out there that'll look at Antonio Brown and you'll be like, he won. He played the system. First of all, know what you're talking about. He wanted to get out of Pittsburgh. He wanted a long-term deal, long-term security. And according to him, how many times did you hear him say, I'm my own man, I don't need the money? Well, guess what? You Bill Belichick's man now. Because Bill Belichick and those boys essentially have him on a 1-year deal. And obviously they gave up the $9 million, but they didn't have to give up the first-round pick that they had offered to the Steelers last spring when Antonio Brown wanted to get traded and the Patriots were trying to acquire him. So they didn't have to give up that first-round pick. Not only that, they got him on a 1-year deal. Not only that, they can let go of Antonio Brown anytime they choose to. So this ain't Pittsburgh where you get to miss practices. This ain't Pittsburgh where you get to ignore the coach. This ain't Pittsburgh where you get to hold the team hostage. This ain't Pittsburgh where the team plane is waiting for you. And the team plane is being held up so you could get there on time. Or you could go to get to the respective city with the rest of the team, according to the reports. It's a new day. And you're a soldier for Bill Belichick. So you went from sticking out your chest, talking about how you wanted to be your own man, looking for long-term security, to being a puppet for Bill Belichick. Congratulations. Because you're on a 1-year-at-a-time deal. 1 year at a time. Completely at the disposal and at the behest of Bill Belichick. Yes, you are. Probably get a Super Bowl out of it, but you're going to be doing it Bill Belichick's way, not your own. That's how it rolls in New England. That's point number one. Point number two, the guaranteed dollars. You could end up getting $30 million, but it ain't guaranteed. It's 1 year at a time, and most people believe you ain't going to get to the second year because they don't believe that Antonio Brown can act right for a full year. It remains to be seen. They believe he's so selfish, so self-absorbed, such a narcissist that he won't be able to deal with the restrictive measures employed by Bill Belichick, who ain't going to tolerate that nonsense. That's point number two. Here's point number three.
This man has exhibited and displayed a level of selfishness, the likes of which most of us haven't seen. I don't ever want to hear T.O.'s name again mentioned in this breath, not compared to him. No. I don't ever want to hear Randy Moss's name mentioned, not compared to this. I've never seen anything like it. He should be ashamed of himself. And I'm going to say this last point, then I'm going to give it to you. I understand that as black men, we have experiences that other people don't have, and we express our points of view or whatever. But understand why. Because you got people on the come up that are going to be looking to emulate that. And they will never get away with what he got away with. And usually those of us that are in a privileged position understand it. And we're sensible enough and unselfish enough to make sure that we don't sully the pathway for others on the come up. We guard it with our very lives and our very careers so we can make sure that we don't do damage to those who will follow us. Antonio Brown didn't care. I don't give a damn about him being with the Patriots or whatever. What I give a damn about is the nonsense that he engaged in to get to this point. It's disgraceful. I'm ashamed of this brother. That's all I want to say.
That was me on First Take this morning. I meant every damn word of it. I am ashamed. Understand, I'm in the media business. I've been a reporter for 25 years. I was a columnist for several years. I've been a sports commentator and a pundit since pretty much 1999, but for ESPN since 2003. I'm in the business of communicating. I'm in the business of talking to people, not just talking about them. Matter of fact, I've made a career of it. I don't care if I ever speak to Antonio Brown again in life. This kind of behavior on the part of him was so disgraceful, so embarrassing, so irresponsible, so selfish. It's hard for me to put into words. And from the principled position of knowing how to conduct yourself, we all make mistakes. Nobody's flawless. Nobody's perfect. But it's rare in a day where you see somebody intentionally engage in this level of insubordination, of distrust, and beyond. He has taped phone calls secretly. He has revealed private messages of teammates. He has stood up bosses. He's threatened bosses. He's done so many things that are nothing short of reprehensible and egregious. I don't understand how anybody can defend this. And as a black man, let me be very, very clear. While nobody should get away with it and most wouldn't, when it comes to you being black and in America, it's not just about doing twice as much to get half. It's also about paying twice the price for half the egregious behaviors of others. We don't get chances like others do. And so I look at it and I'm sitting there because you're going to have some ignorant fools out there that use words like sellout. Y'all call up here today. Y'all thought I hung up on people in the past. Try me today. Come on with it. Watch what I do. Because let me tell you something. I'll be unapologetic. I love everybody. Meaning black, white, Latino, Hispanic, Asian, American, don't matter. But I ain't apologizing for having a special affection for my people. I'm a black man. And I love my people. And I'll be damned if I'm going to sit idly by and let people on the come up think that you have a snowball's chance in hell of getting away with the kind of behavior this man exhibited. You don't. You do not. I'm not selling out. I'm looking out. I'm here. You trying to get here. And I'm telling you, it ain't going to work. Don't let Antonio Brown make you think for 1 second you can get away with this. It doesn't happen. This is an abnormal circumstance for a clearly abnormal individual. But he will pay because this nonsense he engaged in will stay with him for the rest of his life. The word clownish will be associated with his behavior. You mark my words. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Oh, I got a lot more to talk about. Make no mistake about it. That was Straight Talk Wireless, everything for less, only at Walmart. But I'll get to your calls and more in just a minute. By the way, when it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need to get to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why. But because of my behavior, my willingness to be belligerent, childish, truculent, stupid, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I could suspend you for week 1, and the remainder of your deal is virtually unguaranteed. That means week 2 through 17, at any time, I can cut you and don't have to owe you. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. If I'm the Oakland Raiders, I suspend him right now. Guess why? It ain't even emotion now. Now it's business. So instead of me having to guarantee your salary, because remember, if I play you week 1, your salary for the entire year is guaranteed, and you get to act a fool anytime you want to. But if I suspend you week 1, but I don't suspend you again, what I hold over your head is anytime you want, anytime I want to. If you act up again, I can suspend you, and I don't have to owe you a dime. Now, if somebody acts belligerent, if they act childish, if they act insubordinate, and I can get away with not guaranteeing your deal, I'm sorry. I'm in a business position. Now it's not emotion. It's about business now. That's the equivalent of you buying a home. I'm just using a crazy analogy here. You buy a home and you're guaranteed every dollar, every mortgage payment. Somebody has said you can do what you want with the house, and damn it, I still got to give you the mortgage money. But because you acted up, the guarantee is now stripped from you, and at any given time, I can void the agreement. That puts me in a position of power. Antonio Brown handed the Oakland Raiders that power on a silver platter, all because he wanted to express himself emotionally and cuss the damn GM out. Now, if that ain't the epitome of stupidity, I don't know what is.
It's open. Touchdown for the goal.
I expect the Dallas Cowboys to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl.
The Cowboys continue to win, and they've gone to the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years.
When you look at the way this team is built, play action, throw the ball down the field.
Fade left side of the end zone. Ah, what a throw! Touchdown to Amari Cooper, and that throw was perfect.
Feels good to register the W. Certainly some good stuff to build on, but we have a long way to go.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
Sitting here. Presented by Progressive Insurance. Drive pay an average of $699 less per year. Plus, from the biggest concerts and games to the hottest theater shows and more, Vivid Seats has it all. Download the app and join the Vivid Seats Rewards Loyalty Program today. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. That is the number to call in to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Before I get into a few of the games that took place yesterday, Dallas Cowboys looking strong, New York Giants looking pathetically weak, the New York Jets finding yet another way to lose, the Los Angeles Rams surviving against Cam Newton, or should I say Christian McCaffrey, and the Carolina Panthers. Wanted to point that out. Seattle surviving against Cincinnati. Whole bunch of stuff there. Whole bunch of stuff to look at. Whole bunch of stuff to get into. No doubt. But I wanted to let y'all know, or let y'all hear some sound from the Dan Le Batard show. I believe it was earlier today. The videographer for Antonio Brown, the guy that's been filming and taping all of the shenanigans, including Antonio Brown running around, waving his arms like he's free, because he got away from the Oakland Raiders, acting like it was a news flash or whatever. What's the guy's name again, John? What's the name again? Alejandro Narciso. I believe that's his name. Apparently, Antonio Brown didn't violate any laws because apparently, according to Alejandro Narciso, he got consent from John Gruden. Listen to Alejandro talking to Dan Le Batard.
The way that happened was I was shooting him all day, just documenting everything because eventually, it'd be cool to use it in like a longer form piece. And he was talking to Drew Rosenhaus, and then suddenly he goes, "Oh, Gruden's on the line." So I wasn't really thinking at that point of anything, you know. And I wasn't gonna be like, hey, tell him that you're recording, by the way, you know. So we recorded it, and then I put it in the video. And then while we were doing it, AB's marketing manager calls him and he says, hey, do you guys know that that's illegal to, you know, post that without him telling him first? And I was like, damn, he's right. So I was in the process of taking all the Gruden stuff out, and then I told AB, we told him, hey, just send the video to Gruden and then see what he thinks, because, like, we can get consent that way. So my whole thing the entire time when we were waiting for Gruden's response was that Gruden's going to be like, listen, AB, I love you, man, but, you know, that's disrespectful. I can't be having you
Gruden gave permission?
I can't be having you post, like, our own conversations, which is the response that I think anyone would think was going to happen. And then he responds like 15 minutes later, 3 texts. He goes, wow, I love it. Loved it. I love it. And I was like, what?
What?
And then we were like, all right, there's our consent. Like, keep the text message.
$10 million a year.
First of all, if I recall, John, look at me. Didn't they say they posted it first and then realized that they wasn't supposed to do it? I think that's what I heard. And then they called John Gruden. That's what I heard. Well, I'm saying they filmed it, but they were talking about posting because the marketing director was like, you can't post it. It's illegal to post it. So I think they posted it first, then got permission, and then he was in the process of taking it down and then got permission from John Gruden. So John Gruden gave the okay. Okay, so be it. It doesn't matter because John Gruden wasn't going to press charges or anything like that anyway. But all I'm saying is that all of this nonsense, all of these shenanigans, this is embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It really, really is. You know, and then you got Kevin Durant, easy money sniper on Instagram, straight fire, and you got other people like Von Miller and them acting like, you know, you pulled off a heist. I mean, way to go, way to go. I don't see them acting that way. I don't see Kevin Durant acting that way. I don't see Von Miller acting that way because they know better. They know better. And you know how bad of a look this is. But that's neither here nor there. Let's go to the phones. 888-SAY-ESPN. John, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, Stephen A. A lot of respect. Listen to your show, first time caller.
Thank you. Go ahead.
You're right about Antonio Brown being a clown. Ain't no doubt.
No, I said I didn't call him.
Clownish.
I didn't call him a clown. I said his behavior was clownish. Yes.
Clownish. Yeah. I misquoted you this. Clownish. And you're right. You don't want to hear about T.O. There's other people in the league that may act like that. But I do think that there's an opportunity, and I'm from Texas. I'm not from up there. I don't want to see anybody be a super team. Nobody. They got the opportunity to now at New England with AB being on their field. But they're looking at it. They're going to do it Bill Belichick's way, as you pointed out. And the long story cut down to nothing is he's going to either fit in that system or he's gone. They don't tolerate it. And then he's going to be harder to employ anybody by anybody else because they're going to read between the lines and say, look, here's your opportunity to make your money. Here's your $30+ million in incentives. You can't follow the rules.
I got you. Appreciate the call, man. Thank you so much. Terrence, you're live with Stephen A. What's up, Terrence?
Hey, Stephen A., how are you?
I'm all right. Go ahead.
First time caller. I love your show. All right. To me, as far as the Antonio Brown situation, like I'm from Miami, and to me, it just seemed orchestrated from the jump because I called that he would have been on the Patriots when the Pittsburgh Steelers let him go. I knew that he wouldn't be traded there.
Well, first, stop right there. First of all, the Steelers didn't let him go. They traded him. They got a third and a fifth-round pick, and it was from Oakland and they turned down a first-round pick from New England.
Yeah, because, of course, you're not going to send them to your rivals. You're getting them out of the air. I mean, you're trying to get them as far away as possible, and you send them to a team that you don't think is going to compete against you. So, to me, he was working on this from the jump because, like you said during the show, I followed it from the jump. There was no way that a player was going to do all the things that he was doing and expecting to play, from the crowd chamber to the helmet, to all that. I was looking at it like, this man don't want to play football. His money's good. He's probably done with football. But then when I heard he got
about the Yankees all you want to. All the Yankees did was go out there and pay high-priced talent. That's what they did. They bought everything. In the case of the New England Patriots, you got Bill Belichick being slicker and smarter than everybody else. That's what you have here. And regardless of folks bringing up Spygate, Deflategate, and everything in between, it is clear that players throughout this league just have an elevated level of respect for Bill Belichick and Tom Brady above all others. We, at some point in time, we just have to accept that. Every single player, I mean, they go to New England because New England has a structured system. There's a certain way they go about doing things. And if you are willing to be compliant and go along with the program, you'll probably walk away with a Super Bowl championship. That's been New England's message for the last 2 decades. And it's worked to perfection. They just, regardless of what anybody wants to accuse them of, the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, they win. And we can't get around that. Everybody wants to be with a winner, and everybody wants to be a part of a winner. Gotta go. Appreciate the call. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. More of your phone calls before Boogie McFarland comes on the air in a minute. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, if you missed my opening segment, go check out the entire interview on demand in the Stephen A. Smith podcast. Brought to you by the Capital One Quick Silver Card. Earning unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere.
Tremendous job of really getting their philosophical beliefs in line and then executing in lockstep as far as how you traditionally and realistically should build an NFL roster. They built the offensive line. They're taking care of the defensive line. They're trying to be strong down the middle, have a good running back, trying to lock up their quarterback. They have one of the best young centers in the league who's now healthy. They got 2 great young inside linebackers. Byron Jones flip-flops between corner and safety, one of the better young players in the league. They've got some nice philosophical underpinnings that should serve this football team for a long time. And I don't think they're going to win. They're not going to make it to the Super Bowl this year, but they're going to be around for a while. I think Dallas is here to stay now. I think they have now got their base underneath them, and they've got their core group of players. And I think every year now, legitimately, you're going to have to deal with the Cowboys, and that hasn't always been the case. Every year, I think they are set up for the long haul now.
Okay. Louis Riddick right here with Stephen A. Who you got coming out of the AFC? Last question to you.
Oh, that'll be KC. KC's going to the Super Bowl. The Chiefs are going to win it. The Ferrari, Pat Mahomes will win the Super Bowl this year. He'll get it this year.
So you think the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl and they're going to beat the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl?
Correct.
Okay.
That's what's happening.
All right. You sure?
Hey,
you sure?
Steve,
you ain't gonna switch. You ain't gonna switch and pick New England in the next month.
Hey, you know I don't go back on stuff, right or wrong. You know I don't go back.
That's true.
Okay.
I'll give you that. Even though when you were wrong last year, I couldn't find you for a few weeks. Even though that's true.
Come on now.
I couldn't find you for a few weeks. You didn't lie. You didn't go back. I just couldn't find you. You were a bit AWOL.
Hey, I had to lick my wounds a little bit, man. It was hard. It was hard.
I got you.
Right,
appreciate it, man. Keep up the great work. Looking forward to seeing you this weekend.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show, coming to you live from the Seaport District at Pier 17. Brought to you by Chase. Also, prep your engine for winter with Pennzoil Synthetic Motor Oil, the first motor oil made from natural gas, not crude oil. The proof is in the Pennzoil. Back to the phones we go. Paul, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Yeah, Stephen, I just had a couple questions. One, how far do you think the Eagles can go this year?
I think the Eagles go win the NFC East. I think the Eagles could be in the NFC Championship game. If they're at home, they could go back to the Super Bowl. If they're on the road, they'll probably lose at that particular moment in time. But I think their defense is credible enough, regardless of what transpired in the first quarter and a half yesterday. And I think offensively, the acquisition of Deshaun Jackson, as proven with those two bombs that he caught, along with Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar, Zach Ertz, I think, and a healthy Carson Wentz, I think they could beat anybody.
Yeah,
but the Patriots. But the Patriots.
Right. You don't think they can beat the Patriots?
I don't think anybody can beat the Patriots right now with Antonio Brown. I think it's unfair. I think it's the closest the NFL season has ever been to the NBA when Kevin Durant and those boys were in Golden State and LeBron and them were in Miami. I think this is the closest it has been to all of that. I just think it's a bad situation, to be quite honest with you. I really do.
When Antonio Brown denied to go to Buffalo, did he have that right?
I guess so. Well, listen, they the chances are he didn't have the right, but the teams capitulated because you don't want a headache there. If the guy doesn't want to be there, it's a problem. That's why the Raiders are ultimately willing to get rid of him. I got to run, though. Appreciate the call. Juan, you're live with Stephen A. Go ahead real quick, Juan.
Hey, Stephen A. Thanks for taking my call.
You only got 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just wondering, what would it take without Antonio Brown doing all the foolishness to get out of the Raiders?
What? I don't understand your question. What?
I wanted to know what would another way of Antonio Brown getting out of the Raiders team, getting off the Raiders team, and getting traded to the Patriots.
He just could have refused to show up to practice or something. That's all. He didn't have to threaten to punch the coach in the face. He didn't have to call him a cracker. He didn't have to sit up there and stand up John Gruden. He didn't have to act so clownish with his conduct and so eccentric and engaging in all the histrionics. He didn't have to do all of that. Hour number 2 up next. Booger McFarland, Monday Night Football man. He'll be here. Of course, the United States of America. Check your AM, FM listing nearest you, plus ESPN radios on Sirius XM, Channel 80, plus ESPN radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN News. Number to call up, as always, is 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Quote, buy and save on home insurance with Progressive's new Home Quote Explorer. Only at Progressive.com. Always my honor and privilege to have my next guest on the line. Always does an outstanding job for us. For years was doing college football, elevated his game to the National Football League level. Now one of the preeminent voices in the NFL, covering Monday Night Football for us in the booth without Jason Witten this year. The Boogermobile is gone. He's in the booth with our very own Joe Tessitore. I'm talking about the one and only Booger McFarland is on the line with yours truly right now. What's going on, Big Time? How are you, man?
I'm doing good, Stephen. And how are you, man?
I'm doing all right. Before we feature these Monday night games and get into yesterday's game, your reaction to learning that Antonio Brown would end up with the New England Patriots, particularly after all that nonsense that transpired since he had arrived in Oakland with the Raiders a couple of months ago. Your thoughts?
Well, I was definitely shocked. I like everyone else, saw all the people on social media saying, what if this happens? And then, lo and behold, it does happen. I'm going to lean on the side of trusting Bill Belichick. And I know everyone says, what if he doesn't conform to the Patriot ways? What if he doesn't go in there and toe the company line? I think Bill Belichick has earned the right to kick the tires on Antonio Brown. And they guaranteed him some money. And I think if Antonio goes in there and does his job, things are going to be fine. I think if Antonio goes in there and he kind of goes astray, I think Bill Belichick will act accordingly. And, he's done this before with personality, whether it was Chad Johnson or Corey Dillon or Randy Moss or, guys that have come in there that have had some questionable personalities or questionable baggage with them. Bill Belichick has dealt with this before. And so I trust him when it comes to that. But just like everyone else, man, my first thought was, man, the rich get richer.
Interesting analogy, because I got to admit to you, Booger McFarland, it sort of deflated me to some degree about this NFL season, because I know anything could happen any given Sunday. The movie with Al Pacino, LL Cool J, Jamie Foxx, I always loved that movie. But the reality is that when you look at the inordinate amount of talent that the New England Patriots have, particularly led by Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, when you got Josh Gordon and Antonio Brown on the field with Julian Edelman, it's like, my goodness, how are you going to defend against that? Do you really see teams being able to compete with the New England Patriots this season?
Well, it's not just about talent; it's about the execution. And let's not forget, a lot of people were ready to crown the Cleveland Browns with all that talent, and we saw what happened yesterday with them. So I think when you look at the way the Patriots execute and the consistency at which they do it, to me, that's what I marvel at. Tom Brady picked up last night, just like he hadn't been off ball, for the entire summer and hadn't played a lot of football. I mean, he looked tremendous. And so, yes, on paper, it looks good. It looks really, really good. I think Kansas City is going to have a lot to say. The Chargers looked good yesterday, even though they had to squeak a win out. There are teams out there. I think there are the haves and the have-nots, and the Patriots are definitely in the haves category before Antonio Brown and definitely with them now.
Booger McFarland right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. So let's get into Sunday's action real quick. What surprised you most based on what you saw?
Well, I think Cleveland not playing to the level that we all thought that they would play to. Not necessarily from a talent standpoint, but they were very undisciplined. Baker Mayfield threw 3 picks. They had 18 penalties. And I know Freddie Kitchens. I think Freddie is going to be one heck of a football coach. But the fact that his team didn't perform well in the discipline category, turning the football over and penalties. And we got to remember, although they're very, very talented, they are a young football team. And, my biggest concern with Cleveland going into the season was not necessarily whether they would be talented enough, but whether and when they would learn how to win. In the National Football League, talent wins you a few games. Understanding how to win games wins you a lot of them, because you got to know that there are 5 to 6 plays that are going to decide every game. The problem is we don't know when those 5 or 6 plays are going to happen. So the consistency at which you must play every down is paramount. And I don't think Cleveland realizes that just yet, because they are young. And young players, live in this microwave society. You want everything right now. You don't want to do the consistent things over a long period of time and not knowing. And so I think Cleveland has to learn that. When you look at how Seattle played yesterday, I realize they won. And I'm not taking anything away from Cincinnati. But I was shocked to turn the TV on and see Seattle in a dogfight with Cincinnati. I don't think the expectations are as high for the Bengals this year. And I think we give Pete Carroll a lot of credit for the types of teams that he fields, physical football teams. Russell Wilson is one of the better quarterbacks in the National Football League. And they were in a struggle. And now, I'm not going to overreact to anything, but those were probably my 2 biggest surprises.
My biggest surprise with Lamar Jackson and how I saw him perform for the Baltimore Ravens. I didn't expect the kid to look that good. Last time we saw him was in a playoff game against the Los Angeles Chargers. Over 3 quarters and 2 minutes, he literally only had 3 completions for 25 yards. He was absolutely putrid until those last few minutes of that game. And so we come to this year, and he looked absolutely phenomenal. Now, was that a product of him and his ability to throw the 10 pounds that he's put on, the work that John Harbaugh and his staff have done with this kid? Or was it the fact that he's going up against a Miami Dolphins team that barely looks like an NFL team right now?
I'm going to give him all the credit. I've been very critical of Lamar. I think, I watched the same game that you watched last year against the Chargers where he was awful. But you got to give he and John Harbaugh a lot of credit based on the offseason. They changed the entire offense for this young man. And he showed yesterday that not only can he play the quarterback position, he's gotten better at it. Now, I'm not ready to crown him yet and say he needs to be an elite quarterback club. I think the Dolphins are going to be less than what most NFL teams would aspire to be on a bad day. Like, they're going to be terrible this year. And they can say whether or not they want to do it on purpose or not. That's for another conversation. I just think that all you can do is base off what the tape has said. And the tape is saying that Lamar was absolutely perfect from a passer rating standpoint yesterday. I think Hollywood Brown gives him a deep threat that's going to force defenses not to crowd the line of scrimmage. Let's not forget, Lamar didn't run the ball a lot yesterday. I think that was done on purpose. And so I think the threat of Hollywood is going to open up Lamar and his ability to get outside the pocket. But make no mistake about it, so far so good. I want to see it consistently. I think that's when I'll change my opinion and say, you know what, he's arrived. It's year 2. It's game number 2 coming up. Let me see him do it a little bit more consistently.
How disappointed were you in watching the Steelers last night? It's one thing to lose to the Patriots. It's another thing to get obliterated 33-3. What were your thoughts about that?
I was disappointed. You know, I think Mike Tomlin is one of the better coaches in the National Football League, and he's proven that over the course of his career. And I would have bet anything that his team would show up on opening night against the Patriots, because that's their nemesis. That's the team that everyone says that the Steelers cannot beat, and they can't match up. No matter how good and how many weapons that the Steelers have had, they've never been able to beat the Patriots. And I think, you know, Mike Tomlin was bothered. You could visibly see it on his face last night. But I still believe in the Steelers, Stephen A. I still think that, you know, Connor is a very good back. Ben Roethlisberger, I think he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, and we know about Juju Smith-Schuster. Defensively, though, they're going to have to figure out on the back end how they cover people, because that's been their Achilles heel. And General Manager Kevin Colbert, they've drafted a lot of secondary guys. I mean, it seems like they draft 2 or 3 every year. But for whatever reason, whether it's the types of coverages they use, whether it's in their mind right now, Tom Brady just plays tricks on them. And if it were me, I would just go back to the basics. Quarterbacks like a Brady or Breeze or Rodgers, sometimes, man, you try to trick them and you trick yourself. And I think you got to go back to the basics and say, you know what? If we're going to play man coverage, let's just line up and play man coverage. If we're going to play zone, let's everybody rely on each other and do our job, because right now I think it's more mental than it is physical. I think they have talent to cover the Patriots, but it seems to be mental. It seems to me that's what it is.
Booger McFarland right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio and ESPN News. You call it Monday Night Football, so you'll be on here pretty much every week talking about these upcoming Monday Night Football games. The nightcap would be the Denver Broncos against the Oakland Raiders. We've talked so much about what we expected from the Oakland Raiders with Antonio Brown. Now that he's not going to be there, what do we expect from them now? What kind of damage do you think all of this nonsense with Antonio Brown, which led to his imminent departure, ultimately will do to the Oakland Raiders in this 2019 NFL season?
Well, there's no doubt. I think the players inside the locker room are probably going to think about it more. You know, John Gruden has had offenses before where he didn't have a dominant number 1 receiver. He relies on his system and his play calling, and he thinks that, you know, I can out-scheme you, which he's done a lot of times. He's a Super Bowl winning head coach. I think the running back he took out of Alabama, Josh Jacobs, is going to be featured tonight, both running the football, catching the ball out of the backfield. I think Derek Carr has a new weapon in Tyrell Williams. You're going to see him on a lot of deep passes. They have a tight end named Darren Waller. I think is going to be a focal point, much like Jared Cook was last year. So I think when you look at the offense in Oakland, they're going to put points up. My concern is their defense. It's still the same question. Who's going to rush the passer? You know, you traded away Khalil Mack. You brought in Arden Key. We haven't seen much out of him just yet. And so I want to see who up front and on defense is going to lead to a pass rush, because if they can't get the football back, that defense will be on the field a long time. I think the Raiders are still – I know the talent has improved, but I still think they're going to struggle throughout the season.
Booger, help us out here. How are we to look at John Gruden at this particular moment in time? We saw what concessions he was willing to make for Antonio Brown. And then the backdrop of all of this is that Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper are gone and both shining in Chicago and Dallas, respectively. How are we to look at John Gruden right now as football fans?
I think you view Gruden, you know, like you view a lot of coaches in the National Football League. They're paid to win games, and they're going to do whatever it takes, and they'll say whatever it takes to help them win football games. I think that's why he has Mike Mayock as a GM, so he can take care of some of the business end, whether it be contracts or taking some of the public criticism for moves that they make. But John Gruden is a football coach. He wants to be on the field with the best players that he can. Was he willing to make concessions for Antonio Brown? Absolutely. And I think you'll get this, Stephen A. In our business, you know, when you are good at what you do, your bosses are willing to make concessions because they know you can affect the bottom line. Mm-hmm. And when you affect the bottom line, that's good for business. Well, John Gruden knows that Antonio Brown can affect his bottom line, which is winning games. And he was willing to make concessions. Now that he's gone, I think he has to move on. And he's going to have to really make sure that the locker room understands that. And as players, we know that. We know Antonio Brown is a top 5 wide receiver in football. And on our team, we're a better team when he's there. Now that he's moved on, somebody else has got to step up, and we move on. But I view him just like all these other coaches. They are trying to win games. And as far as character and standing for something, they all say the right thing. But guess what, man? Their job description says coach football, win games, period. It doesn't say they got to be a humanitarian. It doesn't say they got to be a leader. It says we got to win football games, and that's what they're paid to do.
I could get into how that analogy is in no way applicable to me at ESPN, but I won't, Booger. I'll move on from there. Let me ask you about we're talking to Booger McFarland, voice of Monday Night Football right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Let's get into Vic Fangio and his Denver Broncos. I don't know what to expect from this team this year. Vic Fangio obviously was in Chicago last year. They had an elite defense. They still have an elite defense without him, with Chuck Pagano leading the way if Thursday night's game against the Packers were any kind of indication. But now Vic Fangio is the head man in Denver. Haven't heard much about them this preseason. Don't know how good they're going to be defensively. Damn sure don't know how good they're going to be offensively with Joe Flacco at the helm right now. What do we expect from the Denver Broncos this year?
Well, first of all, I'm so happy for Vic Fangio. You talk about a guy that's waited over 3 decades to be a head coach. He's a grinder, somebody that nobody gave him anything, and now he gets his opportunity. Definitely can relate to him. His defense in Denver is going to be very similar, I think, to his defense in Chicago. May not be as gaudy with the numbers, giving up few points and things of that nature, but he's got 2 bookends, Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. He's got good secondary play, maybe not great yet. You still have one of the better nickel corners in football in Chris Harris Jr. I think the defense is going to keep him in a lot of games. The key is going to be Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco has to remember what color the Broncos are wearing each and every game, because if they don't turn the football over, I think it's going to be a lot of what we saw in Baltimore when Baltimore was really rolling. Remember, Joe Flacco, he's never been a guy that's going to throw for 350 a game. But what he does, he moves the ball down the field, gets the ball to his tight ends. They have a pretty good one, a rookie in Denver named Noah Fant. They're going to feature him. I think they're going to run the football with this kid, Phillip Lindsay, in this zone scheme. It's going to be a lot of play action. Flacco outside the pocket. Let's not forget he is very athletic. He likes to be outside the pocket. So imagine the style of play we saw when Flacco was at the pinnacle in Baltimore. You saw that those gritty games, low-scoring games, Flacco leading the drive here and there. I think you're going to see a lot of that in Denver, and that's the way they want to play football. They're pretty explosive on the outside. Emmanuel Sanders, Cortland Sutherland, they have players. But I still think a defensive coach like Coach Fangio is going to want to play it close to the vest. So I think Denver, even though we don't know what to expect from them, I think they're going to be pretty good. I would lean toward them tonight against the Oakland Raiders, but I can't wait. And I'm so happy for Vic Fangio, someone has paid his dues and waited for the opportunity to be a head coach.
Let's talk about New Orleans hosting the Houston Texans tonight. The Houston Texans no longer have Jadeveon Clowney. Huge loss for them, or something you believe they can recover from?
Well, there's no doubt it's a huge loss, and they're going to have to recover from it. You don't lose a physical mismatch like Jadeveon Clowney and just say you're going to replace him with somebody, because they don't, quite honestly, they don't have anybody on their roster that can do what he did. They're going to have to use a couple of different guys. One of them, Whitney Merciless, is going to try to fill that role, kind of that athletic freak role where we can put you as a linebacker, as a defensive end. We can blitz you up the middle. And there's a big onus that's going to be put on J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt's a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. He is a surefire Hall of Famer. And now his quote-unquote running mate is gone. And so you're going to have to step up. You know, to whom much is given, much is expected. You've been given a lot of talent. And the expectations for him, I think, are going to be ramped up tonight. But make no mistake about it, Stephen A., the Houston Texans are ran by one guy, and that's Deshaun Watson. And I've watched him play since he was at Clemson. When he gets in situations where he feels like his back is against the wall, he goes in the phone booth, and he comes out, and he's got his cape on. And I think if this game is close in the fourth quarter tonight, he's going to try to do the same thing. That's the guy that runs this show. That's the heartbeat of this football team. And it still is, regardless of whether Clowney is here or not.
What are your thoughts about the New Orleans Saints this year? We looked at the Philadelphia Eagles with Deshaun Jackson yesterday. That was special. We can't ignore the Rams. They beat Carolina. Atlanta flopped against Minnesota. We look at it from that perspective. Is it about Philadelphia and New Orleans, or is it just about the New Orleans Saints and it being their division this year, conference this year?
No, yeah, I think that New Orleans is probably right in there with 4, 5, or 6 teams in the NFC that feel like they have a legitimate shot to come out of the conference and represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. They're loaded, Stephen A. Drew Brees runs the show. I think the MVP of the National Football, my pick, National Football League this year, my pick was Alvin Kamara. I think he is outstanding. Someone told me this, and I had to go back and look because obviously I didn't grow up watching Gale Sayers. They say he's the closest thing to Gale Sayers that this league has seen, and that is a lofty statement to make. No Mark Ingram now. Okay, Latavius Murray tries to come in and be the physical running back. I don't know how that's going to work out, but that's going to play out. Michael Thomas is a top 5 receiver. The offensive line is really, really good. They are loaded across the board. Their defense, especially on the back end, their secondary has to be a little better. It was better toward the end of last year than it was at the beginning. But when you add all that up, they should be playing late in January with the right to go to the Super Bowl. It's going to come down to how the ball bounces. And we know the last couple of years, the ball hasn't bounced their way. With the Minneapolis Miracle, the non-defensive pass interference call in New Orleans, it takes a little luck to win a Super Bowl, and they are praying that this is their year. But they are right there with the Eagles, the Bears, the Rams. The New Orleans Saints are right there with that group of teams.
Let me go back. We're talking about Book of Fallen right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Let me go back to Baltimore for a second because they trounced the Miami Dolphins 59-10 yesterday. That was just a spectacular performance of Lamar Jackson, but also a disgraceful performance by the Miami Dolphins. You hear people accusing the Dolphins of actually tanking this season. Where does Booger McFarland lie in that kind of thinking about the Dolphins?
I don't think they're tanking. I think every player goes out there on the field trying to do their job because we're all getting paid at this level. I think, if you want to blame or accuse anybody, I think you could look at the front office and say, have we put a talented enough team on the field to compete? Players and coaches will never tank because that's not in our DNA. That is never going to happen. And I would refute anyone that says that. But when you start getting above the coaches, when you get into the guy that's choosing the groceries, and you get into the ownership, they can decide whether or not they want to field certain types of teams, certain players. Who do we want to pay? And so to me, there's no doubt that this is not a very talented football team in Miami. Now, is that done on purpose? I think the people to ask are the people above Brian Flores, because from Brian Flores on down, his coaching staff and the players, there is no doubt they aren't tanking. I think those questions should be asked of the hierarchy and ownership down in Miami, because I think the answer would really lie there and not with the coaching staff.
Well, it's interesting because you got Chris Gray as the general manager. You got a black general manager, black coach in the National Football League in Miami, and their team looks absolutely atrocious, so much so that I think it was Mike Florio for Pro Football Talk, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure, but it was somebody over there with Pro Football Talk that reported that several players, I think they reported on NBC last night, that several players for the Miami Dolphins immediately contacted their agents after the loss in an effort to get them the hell out of Miami. To that, Booger McFarland says what?
Man, when you get beat 59-10, I'll be wanting to get out of there too, Steve. Hey, man, listen.
What happened to it being one game? What happened to it being one game?
Listen, South Beach is good. Prime 112 and Miles are great, but I can't stand getting beat 59-10 too many times now. Right. So I think it was guys kind of seeing the writing on the wall. They understand at the quarterback position, Fitzpatrick, he's a placeholder. Josh Rosen, I'm not sure if he's ready. So we don't have a quarterback. You trade away your star left tackle and Larry Tunsil. You trade away your playmaker, even if he is outspoken and Kenny Stills. And now it's like, okay, who's going to make plays for us? So guys start to see the writing on the wall. It's going to be this way. This is just game one, and we're going to see this the rest of the season. And it's a long season. It's between now and after Christmas. So I think those guys that probably call their agents, they're frustrated. I get it. I understand. What I would tell them is this. Hey, it's okay to be frustrated as long as you show up to work. And when you get that check on Tuesday, take it to the bank. And as long as it passes, then keep showing up to work. When that check start bouncing, that's when you can start worrying. Until then, you got a family to feed, man. Go to work and do your job.
Boogie McFarland, man, which game are you calling tonight?
We are calling Texans at Saints. I'm down here in New Orleans, Stephen A.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. And even though Jason Witten, I loved having him on the show every week. Nice watching him catch a touchdown pass in Dallas yesterday.
Huh?
That wasn't bad. That wasn't bad. I feel sorry for Saquon Barkley. He has no help. Zero help whatsoever. It's pretty damn bad. It's pretty damn bad. And it's bad here in New York where you can't get, and with the Giants, you don't have a team. You just got one man. And with the Jets, you got a decent team without a kicker. You just can't make this stuff up, Booker. You just can't make it up.
Stephen A., if I were you, I would be hoping that the Yankees get healthy. That way you can ride that horse till they can't ride no more.
I'm going to try. I'm looking forward to hearing you in the booth tonight handling your business, my man. I know you will. Thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Anytime. Thanks, Stephen A.
All right, the one and only Boogie McFarland. You'll hear him weekly right here with Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. 888-SAY-ESPN is always the number to call up. That's 888-729-3776. We'll get back to your calls and more on all the games that took place yesterday. And, of course, the Antonio Brown fiasco. All that and more coming up. Don't touch that dial. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, do you have frequent heartburn? If I'm the Oakland Raiders, I gave you a guaranteed $30 million. But because of my behavior, my willingness to be belligerent, childish, truculent, stupid, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I could suspend you for week 1, and the remainder of your deal is virtually unguaranteed. That means week 2 through 17, at any time, I can cut you and don't have to owe you. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. If I'm the Oakland Raiders, I suspend him right now. Guess why? It ain't even emotion now. Now it's business. So instead of me having to guarantee your salary, because remember, if I play you week 1, your salary for the entire year is guaranteed, and you get to act a fool anytime you want to. But if I suspend you week 1, but I don't suspend you again, what I hold over your head is anytime you want, anytime I want to. If you act up again, I can suspend you, and I don't have to owe you a dime. Now, if somebody acts belligerent, if they act childish, if they act insubordinate, and I can get away with not guaranteeing your deal, I'm sorry. I'm in a business position. Now it's not emotion. It's about business now. That's the equivalent of you buying a home. I'm just using a crazy analogy here. You buy a home and you're guaranteed every dollar, every mortgage payment. Somebody has said you can do what you want with the house, and damn it, I still got to give you the mortgage money. But because you acted up, the guarantee is now stripped from you. And at any given time, I can void the agreement. That puts me in a position of power. Antonio Brown handed the Oakland Raiders that power on a silver platter, all because he wanted to express himself emotionally and cuss the damn GM out. Now, if that ain't the epitome of stupidity, I don't know what is.
How much of the noise did you hear from the Browns this offseason leading up to this matchup today?
I'm going to be honest with you, man. They were who we thought they were. If you want to crown them, crown them. Talk is big, but you still got to play the game.
Mayfield firing, and the pass is intercepted.
Everybody takes some blame for that. Turnovers on my part. It's just dumb stuff.
This team has to come together.
The lack of playing time in the preseason had something to do.
Man, don't ask me no question like that.
Okay.
Are we done?
Yeah.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
Commemorating the 150th anniversary of college football. Download, subscribe, and review Down and Distance. Available wherever you enjoy your podcast. 888-SAY ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Lots of stuff to get into. Apparently, the NFL is planning on speaking to Odell Beckham Jr. about wearing some expensive watch during a game. So I don't even know what to say. Apparently, the NFL plans to speak with Browns star Odell Beckham Jr. about wearing a watch during Sunday's game. The flashy, fashionable wide receiver sported an expensive watch worth over $250,000 during his debut Sunday with Cleveland, which was rolled 43-13 by the Tennessee Titans. Okay? NFL spokesman Mike Signoro said there are no rules prohibiting jewelry. However, the league does have a policy prohibiting hard objects. He said the league will address the matter with Beckham and the Browns, who play at the New York Jets next Monday night. Browns coach Freddie Kitchens said Monday he wasn't aware Beckham was wearing a watch during the game. Quote, as long as they're going to enforce that with everyone, I'm fine with it. Let's just make sure we get it enforced with everybody. All right. Okay. Some of these dudes making news for these reasons, man. I got no problem. And this is one of the things that I want to say, because people have gotten on me about it. Conforming. Ladies and gentlemen, nobody is saying to conform to everything. But understand, you volunteered to play in these leagues. You want to get paid. Off the field, folks are telling you to obey the law. On the field, they're saying there's rules and regulations that come with every job. You have them, I have them. What's the problem? I couldn't agree with Freddie Kitchens more. What he said is, as long as there are rules that are applicable to everyone, what's the problem? I'll tell you what the problem is. We've got a few people in the league that don't want to follow the rules applicable to everybody. It ain't that rules are made differently for them. It's that they want to be different than everybody in terms of following the rules. I don't even know what to say. Chaz, you're live with Stephen A. What's up, man?
Good morning, Stephen A. I'm calling from Dallas, which I know is your favorite part of the country anyway.
Actually, I like Dallas a lot. No state income taxes in Texas, bro.
Yes, sir.
Doesn't bother me. I like that.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I'm a former veteran in the military, and I'm watching sports and see all this stuff going on with racism, and I wanted to see what you thought about if this same scenario that Stephen A. or that AB was involved with, if that was flipped, and if a white athlete would have said something to, say, a black GM like Ozzie Newsome, how would that have played out?
Probably would have got suspended. A, and number two, I brought that up on Get Up, on the show Get Up this morning with Mike Greenberg and the crew. I said, listen, I'm not white. I don't know what cracker means to white people, but I know what the N-word means to black people coming from somebody that ain't black. Now, I know that there are white folks out there that want to act like, oh, the N-word, shouldn't be said by anybody. And that may be true, but they want to act and use that as an excuse to act like they can say something using that word to black people because black people might use it to each other from time to time. Oh, no, the hell you cannot. You cannot. But I will tell you this. I do think a white person has the right to turn around. And if the word cracker coming from a black person is just as incendiary to a white person, that white person has a right to make noise about that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That you have these individuals that are children are watching them. They're watching their behavior. Yes. They're role models, whether they like it or not. And they chose that platform. Mm-hmm. And when you do things like that, it's going to go down into these children that are watching this and thinking it's okay to act like that.
Well, wait a minute. Here's the only part where I do disagree with you. In defense of Antonio Brown, and I'm in no mood to come to his defense today, it ain't like he went on national TV and said it. He was at practice in the face of his GM, and we reported that over the national airwaves. It ain't like he said it for you to hear, bro. He was in Oakland at practice. in his GM's face saying that. So let's not act like the man went over the national airwaves and disseminated that to the masses. No, that would be us. We did that. That's not him. We have to be fair. All right?
And I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and I appreciate your input. And we got a Dallas jersey for you when you come back.
I don't need no damn Dallas jersey, but I'm happy to come back to Texas Live. I love it there. I ain't going to lie. Appreciate the call, man. Thank you so much. Let's go to Joe. You're live with Stephen A. Tell me something, Joe.
What's going on, man? I'm coming out of Virginia, man. I want to talk to you about my Giants and your Steelers.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I know.
You just pick something better to talk about. Why are you trying to ruin both of our moods today? Why would you do that?
Yeah, I got to do it, though, bro. I mean, I got to do it. I got some frustration built up in me, so I got to.
All right, well, then say what you got to say. You just say, don't bring up the Steelers. Go ahead and go with your Giants. Go.
I'm going with my Giants. Okay, it's evident we don't have a defense. I hope they can yell and braille. But I didn't see nothing really special with the Cowboys there, considering we could have scored if we had a quarterback. I love Eli. He did his thing, but 3 years ago would have been happy if he had retired. Nonetheless, he's still playing. But if we would have had any kind of defense, we could have scored with them. Dallas didn't do nothing great, but I got to say, everybody jerseys and hats and like they going to the Super Bowl. Which Super Bowl they going? They going to a Super Bowl. That's what they going to. But you don't want me to talk about the Steelers? I won't. Yeah. I won't talk about the Steelers, but I will talk about those Giants. Saquon Barkley, yeah, he did his thing. 20 or more touches. I understand 20 or more touches, we generally win. He had 15 for 120. They didn't show me nothing. They didn't show me anything at all. Not going to touch your Steelers. I'll talk to you again about something else later.
Take it easy, bro. We'll talk another day, man. Thank you so much. Mark, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, Stephen A. I just wanted to commend you and Max this morning on First Take with Drew Rosenhaus.
All right.
You see a lot of people. I've seen a few interviews with him, and they don't ask him like all the questions. I heard you on Friday talking about how everything that happened to Antonio Brown was self-inflicted. And I was just wondering, are you guys not allowed to ask him that sort of thing? I know your interview got cut short, but
no, hold it. First of all, the interview did get cut short. He was on a plane and he had to go. That's number one. Number two, in case you haven't noticed, when somebody gets in front of me, they're gonna get asked those questions. I don't give a damn what it is. I'm gonna do my job now. I'm gonna ask you some damn questions. You understand? You don't want to sit in front of me if you don't want to be asked questions that people want to know. You don't want to sit in front of me.
Anybody I've seen talk to him.
Say what?
And then I was just saying, I thought you and Max did the best job asking him questions out of anybody I've seen over the whole weekend through this whole thing.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And then based on what on your last what's his name, Odell thing, how is the NFL going to worry about his watch and they're not going to investigate all this happening? Like, this kind of reminds me of when CP3, that whole trade got nixed by the commissioner.
Well, you're talking about AB ending up in New England?
Yeah, I mean,
the league's position is that
two teams, and now he
listen, man. Do you want answers? Do you want to talk, or do you want answers? I got answers for you.
Go ahead.
Do you want it? The league's position is that it's an individual choice. At the end of the day, there's no evidence that there was any kind of shenanigans or wrongdoing going on with the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots made a choice. You got a guy that clearly didn't mind being a distraction, clearly didn't mind coming across as selfish, as a narcissist, and most teams might not want this guy on their team. But you as an individual made that choice as a team, and since he was let go and he was an unrestricted free agent, you had their license to grab him. That's what you did as the New England Patriots. That's who you are. The league can't do anything about that.
All right, fair.
Thanks
for taking my...
Take it easy. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. We'll come back with your calls to close out the show in a minute. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News, by the way. A reminder that Golick and Wingo will be live from Maryland this Friday covering the Cowboys-Redskins matchup. Part of ESPN Radio's fall football tour brought to you by Marathon. Get 5 cents off every gallon every day with Make It Count rewards from Marathon. To sign up, visit makeitcount.com or download the free app.
I like the team. They ain't going to the Super Bowl though. But I like the football team.
So you like the team, but they're not going to the Super Bowl.
No, they're not, because the Eagles will be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl this year, and they'll play. against the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid will get his first. The best young center in the league, who's now healthy. They got two great young inside linebackers. Byron Jones flip-flops between corner and safety, one of the better young players in the league. They've got some nice philosophical underpinnings that just served this football team for a long time. And I don't think they're going to win. They're not going to make it to the Super Bowl this year, but they're going to be around for a while. I think Dallas is here to stay now. I think they have now got their base underneath them, and they've got their core group of players. And I think every year now,
A healthy scratch from the Redskins lineup yesterday wasn't even allowed to dress? Really? Really? Adrian Peterson, really? JJ, you're live with Stephen A. Real quick, go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Do you think that Antonio Brown looked at the talent that he had at the Raiders? He didn't like what he saw.
It's possible. It's possible. I'm thinking if I'm Derek Carr, I'm thinking, damn, he ain't got no respect for me because he wanted to get the hell out of there instead of play with me.
With that, but do you think that was one of his motivations?
Possibly. I don't know. I don't know, sir. I'm not in his head, but I think so. I could. That's a reasonable conclusion. Appreciate the call. Let's go to Ron. You're live with Stephen A. Real quick, Ron.
Yeah, how are you today?
I'm all right. Got a rush. Go ahead.
All right, yeah, a couple comments about the Steelers. I'm from near Latrobe. I'm a diehard Steeler fan, bleed black and blue. But you got, everybody thinks Tomlin is great. He didn't make any adjustments in the second half. And the defense, including anybody on the position, they don't use their hands to wrap.
Throughout his tenure, the Steelers have lost too many games over the years that they should have won. Now, they've risen to the occasion on many occasions and won games that people counted them out, of course. But they've too many games that they've lost that they should have won. And the other things that's undeniable about Tomlin is that this team never seems ready to go to Foxborough and beat Bill Belichick's New England Patriots. Ever. And I think the record, I'm not sure, but I think the record now is 0-6 with Tomlin going against Belichick in Foxborough. A couple games they won in Pittsburgh and Heinz Field. For the most part, no, they don't get it done at Foxborough. That's very, very